Ava Brooks was a woman who had worked hard her whole life. She was confident, elegant, and successful. She didn't show off, but anyone who saw her could tell that she was someone important. On this particular morning, she arrived at the Atlanta airport carrying herself with grace, her suitcase rolling behind her as she headed toward the boarding gate. She had a calm smile on her face, the kind of smile that comes from knowing you've built something meaningful with your own two hands. She had spent years growing her travel business, Horizon Journeys. It wasn't just any business, it was a huge travel group that helped thousands of clients with bookings, travel planning, and luxury trips. Ava had started it from scratch and turned it into one of the biggest names in the industry. Her clients included high-level executives, celebrities, and even governments. But she never let the success change who she was deep down. She still believed in treating people with kindness and respect, no matter where they were from or how they spoke. As she reached the boarding area, she walked up to the counter to ask a question about her flight. The airline agent standing behind the desk was a middle-aged white woman, chewing gum slowly and tapping on the computer without much interest. Ava greeted her politely and asked her question in her usual clear voice. She had a light African-American Southern accent. Nothing strong or strange, just natural and smooth. But instead of responding normally, the agent paused, looked up at Ava, and repeated her words in a mocking tone, stretching out her syllables and exaggerating her accent like it was some kind of joke. "Oh, you mean that gate?" she said, with a smirk on her face. Then she giggled and looked over at another agent beside her. Ava froze for a moment. Her smile faded, replaced by confusion. At first, she thought maybe she had heard it wrong, but the laughter that followed made it clear. This woman had mocked her voice, her accent, her identity. Passengers nearby glanced at them, some curious, others pretending not to hear. A couple of people raised their eyebrows in shock, but no one said anything. Ava felt something burn inside her, not just anger but hurt. She had faced prejudice before, of course. As a black woman in business, it had happened more times than she could count. But this was different. This was bold, public, disrespectful, and worst of all, it was completely unnecessary. Still, Ava stayed calm. She looked directly at the agent and said in a low voice, "I'd like to speak with your supervisor." The agent rolled her eyes and sighed, pretending to be confused, like Ava was overreacting. "Ma'am, I was just asking you a question. There's no need to be dramatic," she said, still smirking. Ava didn't reply. She stood silently, her face still but firm. She could feel her chest tightening, her heart pounding, not out of fear, but from trying to keep her emotions in check. She knew this moment would stay with her. She also knew that her silence wasn't weakness. It was strength. She was choosing not to yell, not to lose control. She was choosing dignity. A few people nearby had started recording the interaction on their phones. It wasn't loud or explosive, but there was something about it that drew attention. The body language, the expressions. It was enough. One young woman later posted a video online with the caption, "Watch how this airline worker mocks a black woman's accent. This isn't okay." Ava eventually walked away from the counter and sat down, waiting for her flight. But her mind was racing. She thought about how many people like her had gone through this same kind of treatment. She thought about the people who don't have a voice, who are made to feel small just for being themselves. And then she thought about her company, her massive, powerful company. She had a voice. She had power. She had a choice. That night, she called a meeting with her leadership team. She told them exactly what had happened, not with bitterness, but with clarity. She wasn't just upset because she had been mocked. She was upset because this kind of behavior was too common, and no one was held accountable for it. She was tired of the silence, tired of smiling and moving on. Her team was shocked, angry, and supportive. They knew this wasn't just a personal matter. It was about respect, about dignity, about showing the world that even small acts of disrespect can have big consequences, especially when directed at people who have worked their entire lives to be seen and heard. The next day, news began to spread. The video that had been posted online was being shared across platforms. Comments poured in from people all over the world, some expressing outrage, others sharing their own stories of being mocked, ignored, or humiliated in similar ways. It struck a nerve. But Ava still hadn't said anything publicly. She was thinking, planning, waiting for the right moment. At the airport, the agent continued her work as if nothing had happened. But whispers were beginning to spread. Her coworkers had seen the video. Some were nervous, some were indifferent, but a few felt ashamed. Ava, however, wasn't focused on the agent anymore. She was thinking about what this meant for the future, her own future, her company's future, the future of every woman, man, and child who ever got laughed at for the way they spoke, the way they looked, or where they came from. And as she looked out the window of the plane that finally took her to her destination, Ava knew one thing for sure. This wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning. Ava Brooks had spent most of her life building something extraordinary. Horizon Journeys was more than just a travel company to her. It was her dream, her mission, her way of changing the world. She had started small, booking tickets for friends and local travelers. Over the years, with hard work, smart planning, and the trust of her clients, the business had grown into a giant. Her company managed international tours, luxury business trips, and VIP events around the world. It was earning nearly $1 billion a year. But more than money, it had earned respect. Ava had become a role model for many, especially women and people of color. After the incident at the airport, Ava quietly boarded her flight and reached her destination. She didn't speak about it to fellow passengers. She didn't make a scene. But the fire inside her hadn't cooled. It was growing, slow and strong. The mockery she experienced wasn't new, but this time something was different. It wasn't just the insult that bothered her. It was the timing, the boldness, the fact that people were watching, and someone still thought it was okay to humiliate another human being in public. But the world was watching more closely than ever now. The young woman who had recorded the moment at the gate had posted the video on social media. It was only 20 seconds long, but it said everything. In the clip, Ava could be seen speaking politely, and then the agent could be heard mimicking her with a sarcastic tone. The look on Ava's face, calm but deeply hurt, was what truly moved people. That one expression, silent but powerful, touched hearts around the internet. In just a few hours, the video started going viral. People began sharing it on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Comments flooded in. Thousands of users were shocked, angry, and sad. Many people said they had faced similar treatment in airports, stores, schools, or workplaces. They were tired of it, tired of being treated like they were less than others because of their accents, skin color, or background. Soon, some online users recognized Ava in the video. "Wait, isn't that Ava Brooks from Horizon Journeys?" someone asked in the comments. Within minutes, others confirmed it. Her company had been featured in magazines, business shows, and Forbes articles. She was well known in travel and business circles. The woman mocked for her voice was a leader of one of the most powerful travel groups in the world. That realization turned a small story into a massive one. Suddenly, news outlets picked it up. Headlines appeared everywhere. Airport worker mocks black CEO. The internet responds swiftly. Ava Brooks faces discrimination. Her company speaks out. Horizon Journeys CEO ridiculed for accent. Calls for change. Grow louder. Television. News channels discussed it in their evening reports. Journalists requested interviews. Radio shows brought up the topic in debates about racism, class, and respect. Even celebrities began commenting on the video, expressing support for Ava, and frustration with how often such things happen to ordinary people. Ava still remained silent publicly, but her team was already working behind the scenes. At Horizon Journeys, the staff was furious. People cried, not just because their leader had been insulted, but because it felt so personal. Many of them had faced the same kind of treatment at airports and hotels while working for the company. The incident reminded them of the things they had buried deep down. Memories of being overlooked, misjudged, or mocked. That night, Ava and her leadership team sat around a large virtual meeting table. The atmosphere was heavy. Ava, still composed, shared everything she had felt during that short but painful moment at the airport. She explained how she had thought about staying silent, but then asked, "If I don't speak up now, who will?" Everyone agreed. This was not just about her. This was about every person who had been told they were too loud, too foreign, too different. They decided to draft a statement, not just for the sake of PR, but to take a stand. A strong, clear, bold stand. Before releasing anything, Ava called a few close partners, other CEOs and heads of travel companies. She told them what had happened. Most of them were supportive, but some were nervous. They didn't want to create tension with the airline. Ava listened carefully. Then she said, "This is not about making noise. This is about making things right. If our clients don't feel respected when they travel, then what are we offering them?" The next morning, Horizon Journeys posted a public letter on their official website and social media pages. It was written directly by Ava. She shared the story of the airport incident honestly and calmly. She didn't attack the airline, but she asked tough questions. Why was such behavior still happening in 2025? Why did silence still protect those who mocked others for simply being different? The message ended with a powerful line. Respect is not a favor. It is a right. It spread like wildfire. People who had never heard of Ava or Horizon Journeys before now shared the message. Many thanked her for her courage. Some wrote to her privately, saying that her story gave them strength. Others asked how they could help. But the most unexpected impact came from clients, big clients. Horizon Journeys had hundreds of business contracts with companies that booked their corporate travel through them. These were deals worth millions. Some of these companies began contacting Ava's office saying, "We support you. Let us know what action you're taking, and we'll follow." A few even suggested cutting ties with the airline in question. Others started canceling their bookings quietly, choosing other airlines for their staff and executives. This wasn't part of Ava's plan, but it was happening naturally. People were choosing to take a stand, too. The ripple effect was getting bigger. A former airline employee commented anonymously online saying, "I used to work with that agent. She's done this before. Nobody ever reported her." Another said, "Airport staff get away with so much because most people are afraid to complain." These confessions made people angrier, but they also showed how deep the problem really was. Still, Ava didn't ask for boycotts. She didn't shout or demand revenge. Her power was in her calm truth. And sometimes, the truth is the most powerful tool of all. By the end of that week, news about the situation had reached international audiences. Ava had done a single interview by then, where she said, "This isn't about me being a CEO. This is about being a human being. If I hadn't been recognized, this would have been forgotten. I don't want this story to fade. I want it to change. Something." And it was starting to. More airline customers began sharing their own stories. Some said they had been mocked for their accents. Others said they had been ignored, spoken over, or treated as if they didn't belong. The internet turned into a place of shared stories, some heartbreaking, some hopeful. Ava kept reading these stories every night. It wasn't easy, but it reminded her why this mattered so much. This wasn't just about a viral video or a few headlines. This was a mirror showing society what still needed to change. And Ava, with all her power, respect, and experience, was ready to be one of the people who led that change. Ava Brooks sat at her desk, her phone buzzing non-stop. Her email inbox had hundreds of new messages. Her company's social media accounts were flooded with comments and shares. The video from the airport had exploded across the internet, and now everyone was watching her. But Ava was calm. She wasn't panicking. She wasn't hiding. She was thinking. She had spent her entire life being careful, thoughtful, and professional. She never looked for fights. She always chose the higher road. But this moment felt different. This wasn't just about a rude airport worker. This wasn't just about her accent. It was about what that moment represented. It was about how the world still allowed certain people to mock others and walk away smiling. She had seen it many times before. Quiet racism, hidden insults, jokes that weren't really jokes. But now the world had seen it too, and Ava had a chance to do something more than just walk away. Her leadership team gathered that evening in a private video call. These were people who had worked beside her for years. Some of them were from different countries, different cultures, different races. They had grown horizon journeys together, not just as a business, but as a family. When Ava shared her plan, with them, no one hesitated. Everyone was ready to stand by her. "We have to respond," Ava said firmly. "But we won't shout. We won't threaten. We'll speak with strength, with truth, and we'll ask for change." The first thing they did was release a second statement to the public. In this one, Ava shared more details about what had happened. She explained how the gate agent had mocked her accent, how she had stayed calm, and how she chose to walk away quietly, but that it didn't mean she accepted it. She wrote about what it felt like to be humiliated in public and how many others have faced the same. "We're not asking for special treatment," she wrote. "We're asking for basic respect." Her words touched people deeply. Comments flooded in from all over the world. Some were from travelers who said they had been laughed at for speaking English with an accent. Others were from employees in different fields who had been ignored, judged, or ridiculed at work because of how they looked or sounded. Ava's words had opened a door, and now people were walking through it. But Ava didn't just want to talk. She wanted action. She called a meeting with top executives from the airline involved. These were powerful people, rich, influential, and used to controlling the conversation. But this time, the power was on Ava's side. Her video had gone viral. Her story had caught the attention of national media. Her company, Horizon Journeys, was responsible for millions of dollars in annual bookings for airline tickets. If Ava wanted, she could pull those contracts away in a single day. The airline knew it. The meeting started with the airline executives apologizing. They said all the usual things. "We're sorry for your experience. This is not who we are as a company. We will look into it." But Ava didn't let the moment slip away. "I don't need your apologies," she said calmly. "I need to know what you're going to change." There was silence for a moment. No one had expected her to be so direct. Ava continued, "What happened to me is not an isolated case. I just happen to be in a position where people are listening. But there are thousands of people, your customers, who face this kind of treatment every day. What are you doing for them?" The airline leaders promised to review their training programs. They said they would take action. Ava pushed further. She asked for specific steps: better diversity training, strict rules against mocking accents, a safe way for travelers to report disrespectful behavior, and a promise to include more people of color in leadership and customer-facing roles. One of the executives hesitated. "We'll need time," he said. Ava looked at him and replied, "You've already had time. This is 2025. Her leadership, her grace, and her strength impressed even those who had doubted her at first. That meeting ended with an agreement. The airline would publicly apologize. They would review their internal policies and include Ava's company in discussions about improving customer service. But for Ava, that was just one step. Next, she turned to her own clients. Many companies had contracts with Horizon Journeys for business travel. These were big corporations, tech firms, law offices, universities, even government agencies. Ava's team began calling their top partners and sharing what had happened. They didn't ask them to cancel airline bookings. They didn't ask for sympathy. They simply told the truth and said, "This is what we're doing about it. You're welcome to join us." What happened next surprised even Ava. One by one, companies started pulling their flight bookings from the airline. Quietly, without fanfare, without drama. They simply said, "We'll book with other airlines until we see change." Some companies made public statements of support. Others reached out to Ava privately and thanked her for taking a stand. Within 48 hours, the airline had lost nearly $950 million in potential travel contracts, just from Ava's company and its partners walking away. That number shocked everyone. News outlets called it the $950 million mistake. Headlines ran everywhere. One woman, one voice, $1 billion impact. But for Ava, it was never about revenge. It was about responsibility. She didn't celebrate the airline's losses. She didn't smile or brag. Instead, she used the moment to speak again. "I didn't want this," she said in an interview. "But I couldn't stay silent either. If we keep allowing people to be disrespected and do nothing, we become part of the problem. I love this industry. That's why I want it to grow better." More people started noticing. Civil rights leaders praised Ava's calm but firm response. Business experts called it one of the most powerful examples of ethical leadership in modern times. Even other CEOs reached out to her, asking for advice on how to lead with both heart and strength. Ava, however, kept her focus on what mattered: making sure this moment created lasting change. She launched an initiative through Horizon Journeys called Voices Matter. It was a program designed to train travel companies, hotels, and airline staff on how to serve people from diverse backgrounds with respect. She invited speakers, trainers, and experts to build workshops that focused not just on diversity, training, but on empathy, listening, and real human connection. She also created a scholarship fund for young students who wanted to study hospitality and tourism but came from underrepresented communities. Her goal was to change the future of travel, not just by punishing wrong behavior, but by creating better leaders who would build a kinder industry. Through it all, Ava remained the same: calm, steady, focused. She didn't get lost in the fame or the headlines. She still came to the office, still took client calls, still helped customers plan their dream vacations. But something in her had changed. She was no longer just a businesswoman. She had become a symbol of strength, truth, and quiet power. Her story continued to spread across the world, and not just as a business case. It was shared in schools, in leadership seminars, in social justice conferences. It reminded people that real change doesn't always come from shouting the loudest. Sometimes it comes from standing tall, speaking clearly, and refusing to let disrespect become normal. People who had never flown before now knew her name. People who had always felt invisible suddenly felt seen. Ava's voice had become their voice, and that voice was not going to be silenced again. Ava Brooks never imagined that one day, standing quietly at an airport gate, she would trigger a global conversation. She had not planned it. She had not raised her voice, or staged a protest, or even recorded the moment. She had simply existed, calm, kind, and respectful, until someone decided to mock her voice because it didn't sound standard, because it didn't sound white. But now, that one act of cruelty had pulled the curtain back on a much bigger truth, and Ava wasn't about to stop halfway. After the $950 million exit, her phone didn't stop ringing. Journalists, activists, executives, and strangers from around the world were trying to contact her. Some people wanted to thank her. Others wanted to work with her. A few even wanted to argue with her, saying she had gone too far, or that it was just a joke. Ava didn't waste time answering the critics. She didn't have to. The world was already answering for her. What mattered to her now was the opportunity. She had learned something important in the past few days: the power of being visible. For so many years, Ava had led quietly. She had done her work, helped others, hired people from all backgrounds, and tried to build something good without making noise. But now she saw that silence could be dangerous. Silence allowed disrespect to grow. Silence protected those who hurt others. So now she was choosing a new path, still calm, still respectful, but no longer quiet. The Voices Matter initiative that she had launched through Horizon Journeys was growing faster than she expected. Within 2 weeks, more than 500 travel companies from around the world had signed up to take part in her workshops and trainings. Hotels in Dubai, airlines in South Africa, resorts in the Caribbean, and even cruise lines in Europe wanted to join. Many of them admitted that they had ignored this problem for too long. They were finally ready to listen, and Ava was ready to speak. Her first event was held in New York City. Hundreds of business leaders, travel professionals, and influencers attended. Ava walked on stage, dressed simply but elegantly, and for a few seconds the room fell completely silent. She looked around at the crowd and said just one sentence to begin: "This isn't about me. It's about all of us." Then she told the story again. But this time, she didn't stop at the gate agent. She spoke about growing up in the South, where people often laughed at her mother's thick Caribbean accent. She remembered how teachers had looked down on her, in school speaking slower than needed, as if her skin color made her less intelligent. She shared how many times, even after building a billion-dollar business, she had been mistaken for someone's assistant or driver. The audience was moved. Some cried quietly. Others nodded with understanding. Ava didn't shout or blame. She simply told the truth. And the truth was powerful. She then called other speakers to the stage, people from different backgrounds who had faced similar experiences. A Japanese hotel manager talked about being mocked in Europe. A Nigerian pilot shared how passengers questioned if he was really in charge of the plane. A transgender travel blogger spoke about being turned away at border control. One by one, their stories formed a mirror, and the industry was finally forced to look into it. After the event, Ava met privately with top leaders from airlines, hotel chains, and tour operators. She helped them set real goals: hiring more diverse staff, updating customer service training, and creating safe spaces for passengers to report abuse or mistreatment. She didn't ask for donations, she asked for action, but not everyone was happy. Behind the scenes, there were whispers. Some people in the industry were uncomfortable with the changes Ava was pushing. They said she was too bold. Some claimed she was making travel too political. Others feared losing money or getting into trouble for past mistakes. One CEO even told a reporter, "She's turning travel into a race issue." But what he didn't realize was, travel had always been a race issue for many people. The only difference now was that someone had the courage to speak about it. Ava was prepared for resistance. She knew that change made people nervous. She remembered what her grandmother used to say: "The louder they complain, the closer you are to the truth." So she stayed focused. She kept building. She kept listening. Then something surprising happened. A young woman named Farida from Morocco reached out to Ava through email. She had seen the viral video and read every article about Ava since then. Farida wrote, "I used to think I could never belong in this industry because of how I speak, but you changed that for me." She told Ava that she wanted to start a travel blog in Arabic and English to help other women from North Africa explore the world without fear. Ava was touched. She replied personally, offering to mentor Farida, and even sent her a small grant to help her get started. This became a pattern. Messages from young dreamers, small business owners, and travel lovers kept pouring in. They all had the same message: You made me feel seen. Ava realized that this wasn't just about fixing what was broken. It was also about building something new, something better, something that welcomed more people to the table. So she started a new project, the Horizon Fellowship. It was a program designed to support underrepresented voices in travel. Writers, photographers, guides, tech developers, and storytellers from around the world could apply. Those selected would receive funding, mentorship, and a platform to share their work. Ava's goal was simple: give power to those who had always been ignored. In just 3 months, over 1,200 people applied. Some were from small villages in India. Some lived in refugee camps. Some were from the American South, still fighting stereotypes and poverty. Ava read every single application. She cried more than once. These were stories the world had never heard, but they were finally being told. At the same time, Ava knew that true change had to go deeper. It wasn't enough to create programs or run workshops. There had to be accountability. So she formed an independent advisory board made up of activists, lawyers, former airline workers, and educators. This board would monitor how companies treated travelers and employees, releasing regular public reports. If companies improved, they would be praised. If they failed, they would be named. Some companies protested. They said it was too aggressive. But Ava stayed firm. "You can't fix what you won't face," she said. Her quiet strength continued to win people over. Even her critics began to soften. Some who had once doubted her started to see the results. Flight attendants began reporting fewer complaints of mockery. Passengers said they noticed a difference in how they were treated. Customer service teams at airports received better training. Slowly, small changes started adding up. One day, Ava received a letter from the same airline where she had been mocked. It was written by the gate agent's manager. In the letter, he apologized again and said the employee had been fired after an investigation. He also said their team had reviewed thousands of hours of staff footage and found dozens of similar incidents. "We are ashamed," the letter read, "but we are also determined to do better." Ava didn't smile when she read it. She didn't cheer. She just felt relief. Not because someone was punished, but because someone finally admitted the truth. She shared that letter, with permission, in one of her speeches, not to shame the airline, but to show that healing was possible. That change wasn't a dream. It was real, and it was happening. By the end of the year, Ava's work had reached over 40 countries. Her programs were taught in business schools. Travel companies began competing, not over luxury but over how fairly they treated their guests. A few even created their own diversity departments inspired by Horizon's model. Still, Ava remained humble. She didn't want awards. She didn't want attention. She just wanted people to feel safe when they traveled, to feel respected when they spoke, to feel like they belonged no matter where they came from. Sometimes when she had a moment alone, Ava would think back to that day at the airport. She remembered the mocking voice, the surprised silence of the crowd, and the heavy weight in her chest. But now, that memory didn't hurt the same way. Now it reminded her that even the smallest moment can become the start of something bigger. All she had done was stand tall, speak softly, and refuse to let her dignity be stolen. Ava Brooks had come a long way since that day at the airport when a gate agent mocked her accent. The event had changed everything, not only for her but for many others who had faced similar treatment but never spoke out. Now, Ava's journey was reaching a new chapter, one full of hope, challenges, and the promise of lasting change. After months of hard work, Voices Matter had become more than just an initiative. It was a movement. Travel companies worldwide had started to embrace the idea that respect and inclusion were not just buzzwords, but necessities. Ava's workshops were now part of the standard training for thousands of employees, from airline staff to hotel receptionists, to tour guides. This wasn't just about avoiding rude behavior. It was about changing the way people saw each other. What excited Ava the most was seeing young people get involved. Through the Horizon Fellowship, dozens of new voices from all corners of the world were telling their stories and shaping the future of travel. Some wrote beautiful blogs about exploring their homelands. Others made videos sharing tips for travelers who didn't speak the dominant language or who had unique cultural needs. These stories connected people, breaking down walls of misunderstanding and fear. Ava made sure to keep in touch with many of these fellows. She loved reading their messages, watching their progress, and sometimes even helping them solve problems. One young woman from Brazil wrote about how her small travel company had started hiring indigenous guides, helping to preserve their culture while providing visitors with unforgettable experiences. Ava sent her words of encouragement and promised to spotlight her work on Horizon's platforms. But Ava also knew that this journey wasn't easy. Changing deep-rooted attitudes took time. Not every company was quick to change, and some travelers remained unaware of the issues. There were still incidents where people were judged unfairly or treated differently because of their language, skin color, or background. One day, Ava received a call from a friend who worked at a major airport in Europe. He told her about a young woman from a minority group who had been denied boarding because of a misunderstanding during security checks. The woman felt humiliated and scared. Ava immediately offered help. She connected the woman with legal support and helped organize a training session at that airport to prevent future problems. This was a reminder to Ava that the work was ongoing. No matter how far the movement grew, vigilance was necessary. Respect could never be taken for granted. Ava also faced new personal challenges. Being in the spotlight meant dealing with pressure from many directions. Sometimes she received harsh criticism from people who didn't want change or who misunderstood her message. The media sometimes focused more on drama than on the positive impact. She had to learn how to protect her peace while staying true to her mission. Despite all this, Ava remained grounded. She found strength in her family, her close friends, and her team at Horizon Journeys. They reminded her that she was not alone. Together, they celebrated small victories and supported each other through setbacks. One special moment came when Ava was invited to speak at the United Nations during an event focused on global equality and human rights. Standing in the Grand Hall, surrounded by representatives from countries all over the world, Ava shared her story. She spoke about the power of kindness, the importance of listening, and the need for industries like travel to become more inclusive. Her speech received a standing ovation. But more than applause, Ava wanted real action. After the event, several countries reached out, asking how they could implement similar programs in their own travel sectors. Ava realized that the issue wasn't just local or national. It was global. Back home, Ava kept pushing forward. She partnered with universities to create scholarship programs focused on diversity in tourism and hospitality. She worked with tech companies to develop apps that helped travelers communicate better, no matter what language they spoke. She encouraged businesses to celebrate cultural differences through festivals, events, and storytelling. Through it all, Ava remembered the person she was before all the attention, a woman who simply wanted to be treated with dignity. That memory kept her humble and kind. One quiet afternoon, Ava sat in her office looking at photos sent by Horizon Fellows. Smiling faces from places like Kenya, Japan, Mexico, and India. She smiled, knowing that every face represented a story, a journey, and a future being rewritten. The journey had started with a moment of disrespect, but it had grown into a powerful movement for change. Ava's story had shown the world that even small acts of courage can ripple outwards, transforming industries and inspiring people across continents. In the end, Ava understood that true progress wasn't about winning battles or making headlines. It was about changing hearts, building bridges, and creating a world where everyone could travel with dignity, respect, and hope. And so Ava Brooks continued forward, calm, steady, and strong, a true leader whose voice had become a beacon. For millions, reminding us all that respect is not just a choice, but a right, no matter where we come from or how we speak.